Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining us now is a former policy advisor to Ronald Reagan, Jeff Bell. He's also the author of the new book, The Case for Polarized Politics: Why America Needs Social Conservatism. Mr. Bell, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, we've seen social issues really come to the forefront of this GOP presidential campaign. Of course, we're talking about this birth control mandate. Tell us why you think this issue has received so much attention.
Well, it's because of the left. In this country and really all over the world, the left's DNA forces it to bring up issues like this, imposing contraception and sterilization mandates on the Catholic Church, which is how this latest controversy got started. And ever since the word left was invented in the 1790s, they have been about tearing down the traditional institutions, including organized religion and the family, and on behalf of a concept of the totally liberated man. Natural man, they sometimes call it. And this is much more central to the DNA of the left than, say, socialism is.
Well, one of the points you make in your book is how high taxes and negative incentives created by welfare states are in the way of traditional nuclear families. Explain how and why this happens.
Well, it's a matter of the incentives that are put into society. Certain transfer payments are taking up the space where after-tax income would normally be. They're financed out of people's wages, and certain of these transfer payments actually encourage greater female participation in the workforce. And we've had such an increase in female participation in the workforce that women, when they're polled, complain that they don't have enough time to be involved with their children. So it's naturally helped suppress the fertility rate and led to an aging of the workforce, much more in Western Europe and Japan than here, but it's still a problem here.
Well, you also talk about how elites in both the Democratic and Republican parties, both on the right and the left, try to marginalize social conservatives. Give us some examples of this being done on the left and the right now.
Well, on the right, an example from 2010 was Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels saying that there ought to be a truce on social issues. The problem with calling a truce is that a truce has to be participated in by two sides, and the left never lets up on these issues. The left likes to bring them up, but in a way in which conservatives try not to resist, that they can have their way, like on this mandate, hoping that conservatives will not resist, and that conservatives will be tempted to talk only about economic and foreign policy issues, when in fact, in the general elections in which social issues come up and come up to the fore, Republicans have a better track record than they do when social issues are buried.
There are also some conservative pundits, and you mentioned Mitch Daniels, who's actually the governor of Indiana, but they say that the Republican Party right now needs to focus on economic issues and have social issues take a back seat. Specifically, of course, they're talking about the deficit and the debt that we're facing. How do you counter that argument?
Well, I think that it's very important for the Republican Party to have an economic platform. That's what I work on in my day job, is getting them a more specific economic platform. But to say that we're going to talk about the economy at the expense of social issues, I think Rick Santorum has provided a service by saying that it's the decline in the family of two-parent couples raising children that's one of the economic problems, because single-parent families have a poor track record of getting their children prepared for the workforce. So it's really a mistake to completely separate the two.
Well, I talked about this with you a little bit, but I heard Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus on the radio this morning talking about how the RNC is focusing a lot more attention on the Hispanic and Latino voters for 2012, the majority of which, of course, went for Obama in 2008. How important do you think social issues are going to be as Republicans try to sway these voters?
Very important. Latino voters are considerably more socially conservative than the average voter. One recent example from 2008 was Proposition 8 in California, when Latinos voted in favor of Proposition 8, which defined marriage as being between a man and a woman, the traditional definition. White voters voted slightly the other way. So Latinos were to the right of the average California white voter on that same-sex marriage issue. They are more traditional in their family life, and they're very appealable to in social issues.
And how prominent a role do you think Hispanics and Latinos will play in the social conservatism movement as it moves forward?
Well, I think there are politicians we know about, like Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, but I think that it's going to be integral in pushing Latinos away from the Democratic Party. Many Latinos may think that the Democrats are their champions because they have the safety net, and in recent years they've sounded much more pro-immigration than the Republicans. But I don't think Latino voters are completely comfortable with the lifestyle and socially liberal stance of the Democratic leaders.
This week, of course, should be a very important one for the Republican Party with Super Tuesday. Former Governor Mitt Romney recently picked up some major endorsements, namely House Majority Leader Eric Cantor. Give us your thoughts on Mitt Romney's record as a conservative.
Well, it's recent. But the truth is that in the most recent debate between Romney and Santorum, which was right before the Michigan primary, although it took place in Arizona, Romney sounded just as socially conservative as Santorum did, and did a very good job of explaining why this is an attack. The contraceptive mandate is an attack on religious freedom of the Catholic Church. So the truth is that in this particular race, there has not been any great disagreement on social issues. You can contrast that with 2008, when Romney was the most socially conservative of the major candidates, at least in comparison to Giuliani and McCain. So Romney, by not changing any of his positions, is really being attacked from the right, and yet he has the same positions, and all the major candidates have been socially conservative in the primaries.
And so you're comfortable, should Mitt Romney get the nomination, with him carrying the flag for social conservatives?
He has all the right positions. The question is, will he understand that it's in his interest for these subjects to come up in the general election? The Democrats really, and the media, want to deter Republicans from raising these issues, because in races like 1988 and 2004, when they did come to the fore, those happened to be the only two elections since Reagan when the Republicans won a popular majority. So having social issues come up, Governor Romney and his advisors should understand, is more likely to be in their interest than not.
Okay, well, you mentioned this also a little bit, but I want to give you a chance to talk about the Gold Standard 2012 project, which you direct. Tell us about it and how people can get involved.
Well, that is our address, is goldstandard2012.org, and we're simply trying to get a consideration of a return to the gold standard into the political dialogue in this election year. We were very gratified that Ron Paul has been campaigning on this issue, but also that Newt Gingrich advocated a gold commission, a new gold commission similar to one that Reagan set up in the 80s, and had Lou Lehrman and Jim Grant, both of whom are experts on returning to the gold standard, and they're people that we work with. And if they're the co-chairman of a new gold commission, we could really move toward a new gold standard early in the next administration. Gingrich is the only one advocating this. We're hoping that Romney and Santorum will get interested in this as well.
Well, it does seem to be getting at least a little more attention, as you mentioned, with Newt Gingrich bringing it up on the campaign trail. I want to thank JeffBell, author of the book, The Case for Polarized Politics, Why America Needs Social Conservatism, for joining us. Jeffrey, good to have you with us.
Thanks so much.